I can't believe it's the end of the day already. We're ending on a high note, though, with Saskia Freeke. She is an artist, a creative coder, and interaction designer, visual designer, and educator. I can't think of many things that she doesn't do. Actually, this is quite an extensive list. So her work addresses structure, geometry, and playfulness. A significant part of her artistic practice is the ongoing daily art project that she started in January 2015. And she explores and experiments there with generative patterns and animations. So she's going to be walking us through this project and how she got started. So Saskia, over to you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen first. Hope this will go well. So, well, one of the last talks before we can have some drinks, I think, at the network event. So yes, my name is Saskia Freeke. I'm an artist, creative coder, and interaction designer, visual designer. I have, well, I'm going to tell you a lot about the project that I've been doing for a long time. As well, hide this one, yes. Just to know a little bit about my background. Before this project, I will explain a lot more why it started, this project. But it's mostly about coding and learning to code. And when I studied interaction design, I learned coding, but I definitely didn't understand it back then. And after 2 years, when I thought, well, let's start again, to explore by myself the coding part. And that was really one moment that finally, sorry, there's like some horns going in the background on the streets. It's so fun to work at home with all the noise around. But yeah, so one artwork a day, and mostly it helped me to learn coding, but I will explain you how. It actually didn't start this day. It started a little bit earlier with a I don't know my slides, of course. So this project has been going on for 6 years, 22 days. If I still need to do 2 days artwork, but that will happen, of course. That's 2,240 days of creating one artwork each day that I share online on different social media. So what I wanted to explain, that it didn't start that day, the 1st of January 2015. It actually started in 2014. It was 2 years after I graduated, and I really was looking, like I always do design things, but I really wanted to kind of explore my artistic side, because I always have been kind of doing arty stuff, painting when I was younger and all that kind of stuff. And I really was wondering, could I make these patterns? And I was, well, looking at different courses, and I came around with around a course that was focusing on this, on Skillshare. And that really helped me to kind of get started with coding and making these generative patterns. As well, I was exploring another program that's called Hexels. It's a drawing program software where I was also creating these animations. So in 2014, it was really fun to kind of have your time to explore these things, to see what I can do, have my own creativity instead of a client who is asking for something. But I always have been a little bit scared to show my work, and I still am sometimes. And I feel always that things need to be like perfect and amazing before someone else could see it. So I set myself a challenge to make something each day for 1 month, and that was September 2014. So these are, again, the animations or drawings in the program, or generative patterns. And these patterns, I used also a lot of SVG videos or SVG images to generate these patterns. What was nice, and like, it was really hard that month, but I kept on doing it, and it was especially so. Doing something each month is a challenge as well, but for me as well to upload it on. For back then, I only did it on Tumblr, so I was just posting it at Tumblr, no tags or anything. I really hope nobody would see it, but eventually it kind of like helped me to show my work, what I'm creating. And one of the things that I find also really interesting is you kind of get feedback not only through likes, but it's also really interesting what people could say, and it gives you new ideas from other people. And yeah, it really helped me not to try to not make perfect, amazing things, because, well, one day it only goes 24 hours, and I don't have 24 hours to make something perfect each day. But it was really hard, but also fun. So after this, I kind of continued a bit more. And didn't do it every day, but most of the days, because I really liked doing and exploring, and as well share it. Had something great to kind of, well, this one is done for now, and let's go to another one, and really have sketches and explore what I can do. Then I thought, well, the 1st of January 2015, I thought, well, I'm just going to do it again each day. But I wouldn't, I thought, well, I definitely can do 2 months now. But maybe 6 months. And, well, after 6 months, I definitely made everything I could imagine or think about. Probably not sure if I would have so much creativity in me to make new things every day or for so long. But we're still here, so I do. So mostly this project, and it's a big part of my life, of course, now, but it also helps with a lot of other projects I'm doing. It's a lot about exploring and sketching, and what I really like, as I'm a visual person. So I really like this visual output of coding, and create something artistic and interesting with it. Most things can be seen as just the patterns that I'm making, and those are just the stills, but as well animations I'm making, and I hope that the animations are getting well on the screen. I think it does. So now I'm gonna hypnotize everyone just a little bit more with the animations. So the animations also have a part of the patterns and a repetition, and that's really my thing. And also using simple geometry to create something amazing. So the tools, and I saw already a question about that. So most of the time I'm using processing, and processing is really, for me, one of it's a, yeah, so something I'm so familiar with now that it's just like a sketchbook, you could say. Sometimes I use P5GS, not always for my dailies, but I do really like processing in P5. But as well, like what I mentioned before, Hype Framework, that's what I started. It's kind of an extension library for processing that really focuses on pattern making. There has been a small time that I use open frameworks. When I was trying to learn more about open frameworks, I thought, well, let's do my dailies as well in open frameworks so I can get into that coding part and kind of get more familiar with. Hexels is a drawing software that I use as well. So no coding. Sometimes I make images that I do use for patterns with Hexels. But mostly, like the past 4 or 5 years, it has been processing that I use. Later on, I will show some more processing. So yeah, I'm visual and I really love to design stuff, and colors is really one of the things I find really fun, and yeah, so much to do and experiment with. So that's, yeah, this is as well one of the greatest thing of the project, that I can play with those colors, and it just really helps to kind of understand the colors better and what fits well, what doesn't fit well. And the compositions is well something that keeps on like evolving and has some kind of structure that I use. So next to the coding, exploring coding, and what I'm able to do, color and composition is like one of the fun, yeah, another fun thing that I am able to do and explore every day. So I always say I have certain rules to play with. So the code has, of course, some rules, but also my aesthetics. So all my work kind of starts with a grid. And as you see here, it's kind of a boring grid with just one simple shape. But it gives structure to my work. So I always, I think as well, my design background really keeps me on that grid, the focus. But if we don't have all the shapes on each grid point, it already becomes a lot interesting. And as well with code, it's different every time. I wouldn't, like, if I would put this myself on each point and choose which point I would do one or not, it will take some more time, of course, but it also wouldn't be expected what the computer can do. So this also makes it already interesting. Instead of having just a grid, you just kind of see the pattern already. It's quite boring, but leaving some of them out already, kind of your eyes are looking around. Also depends on what kind of geometry shapes you are using, how kind of stable the image is, or more playful. For example, if we have a repetition, again, the whole same repetition of the same shape, but this one has 3 points, a triangle, that already gives a lot more energy. But if we add one rule to it and make it more random, so giving a random rotation, it gives even more energy with the points that are kind of going different ways. So yeah, it's really interesting to explore just having the repetition, having that grid, different shapes, and well, if we add another shape, a square, it also becomes a little bit more interesting. And here the plus shape, that also gives a bit more space. It's only a line, not a block, kind of as the triangle and the rectangle. So it's so interesting to kind of explore this image. But still, it's just a few shapes. There are three different shapes. It's only black outlines and a rotation that rotates only the triangle, probably rotates as well the rectangle and the other shape, but you won't see that because it's 90 degrees. And if you add some color as well randomly, so it picks from 2 colors what the shape wants to be, and that also gives a really interesting result. And if we go back to the random position, so we had like of every position we have 1 shape, but now I say so many shapes I want to have on my canvas. Pick one of these colors, pick one of these shapes, and pick one of these random positions, but still having those positions at the same kind of grid line, still kind of makes it feel soft or like kind of relaxed, stable. And as well, because it's possible that shapes are getting placed on the same place, it's making more shapes out of those 3 simple shapes. So you can do a lot just with 3 shapes and 2 colors to create interesting things. If we change the size, we add another random element of 3 different sizes. That also makes it much more interesting. And a lot of what you see on the left, clusters of shapes together. So, and the best part of having those coded and generatively is every time you run the code, something different comes along. Sometimes it takes for me a long time to find kind of a good one, or one that I feel like that they really fits well, or which one is kind of perfect for that day. And sometimes I just have in one go a really interesting example. So let me see, I have a bit more time. I think we're going well. Let me see if I can change my screen to attempt. Yay, that goes perfectly. So I hope the code is big enough so you can read along. So most of the time, my workflow is that I use Atom, and there's an extension for processing to have the preview next to it. So that really helps with playing with the code. So I like in these years, I kind of built frameworks and changed frameworks to play with. Sometimes I try something new. Sometimes I just kind of grab from different kind of frameworks, programs that I already have written. Yeah, some parts to kind of explore what I can do. So one of the handy things, great for the colors, I just can put different colors in here. So we can as well add like a black one to it. You don't see that, maybe a little bit. It's close to the purple one. But I can add and change it very easily. Then I have a few shapes, an array of shapes, and those I have written below what kind of shapes are behind those things. So for example, if we have 1, that are my circles, 2 are squares, 3 are, or let's keep it for now at this. So I kind of have 14 basic shapes, but sometimes I add another one or think about another one, and I'll add that as well. And I kind of can play with which shapes I want to use. So I have a double array, but it doesn't take the units for now. But when you saw the, so I can kind of switch between having one shape on each point of the grid, or having just randomly a shape, as it's seen here. So we have 30 shapes at this moment. Then I display my shapes, and then the interesting part is the shape class, where I create, where I mostly change all the things that I want to play with. So the dimensions, so I could, what we had before, just 1, or we could do even 10, a lot of bigger, kind of see what that does to it. This is the stroke, so I can change that as well. So you get a lot of more depth with that. The rotation, of course, I'm not gonna explain more. Oh yes, the color. So now we only have stroke, but I have a part where I can say that we can do both fill and only stroke shapes. Then I need to change this random thing. And as you can see, some will have a fill and some not. Or of course, I can only do fill once or stroke once. And somewhere I did have that only stroked shapes will stay a stroke. What else can we do? So rotation is important. So here I have my if statement for all the shapes that I've created. So we have a simple ellipse that we are seeing as well. A square, what can be as a rectangle, but I have it now at this one. It kind of changed sometimes. Like all these shapes are different than kind of the same program that I used a few years ago, but it's kind of evolving and I'm trying something else. Because we could also do, change like this rectangle to something else. And that's quite fun. So I am able to easily change stuff of this rectangle. This is a bit more powerful. So yeah, I have many shapes that I can look at, and sometimes it does work with something I want to build, and sometimes it doesn't work. And also what I find really important is kind of having just a few things. If I do like every shape that I have, it's a lot, and it looks nice, I still think, but it's like those repetition of the same shapes make it I found very interesting. So if you just have a few, it just creates yeah, much more interesting pattern for me. Let me see what some fun things I can do. So I didn't prepare this, so let me check. Sometimes I do as well. Have the same background. I need to copy everything. As well, like the background has the color that some of the shapes also have. Let me include some more. So now you see as well some lines going on top, and let's just do only lines or only fills. Now you have as well shapes that are on top of each other that has the same background color that could make it different. And like for sometimes I try to do something new and I try to code that, and sometimes I make it eventually, if I want to use that more often, much easier to program. But for now, for example, if I want to have, let's do white well with it. If I want to have more of the purple color, I would easily just do this. So it's more of the purple color. I could probably write that as well differently in code, but it's as well kind of hacking what I can do easily to see what things do. Yes, so that's a little bit of code. Yeah, if you have more questions, just ask me later about this. Let's go back to the presentation. Yes. So yeah, it's a lot about playing and kind of see what works and what doesn't work, what feels right. So we have done that. So that's an example with the patterns, but as well with the animations that I'm creating, you see that as well coming back using a grid, but changing the animation, the shape, how that's moving by an offset. Still using one shape or just a few shapes. Circular grid is kind of the same, but then in a circle as well, repeating patterns, and also circles give just so much like it's relaxing to watch those even more than the other grid ones. And then, well, the repetition with the offset and also really everything that I make need to loop. So you have that looping and you can just watch it an hour maybe. But it's the same, but really still interesting. So the repetition of each shape, but multiplying it, just changing some other things, and as well having shapes that kind of create other shapes that you see on the right. Just having simple lines, but as a whole thing, as a whole image, it's almost looks more like something else, an object, or like you can. It's really fun that it's just like lines that are making something. So like recently, I think over the past 2 years, I still kind of use that grid, but I'm trying to have as well in my animation more randomness, so it doesn't always looks the same when I output it, and also the grid kind of is still there, but it's not as like before that I had these ones. So, well, of course, it has been a challenge to do this every day for more than 6 years. But to kind of keep playing and kind of to keep it fun for myself as well, I kind of also have these small challenges I thought of, and on them it's like having the same color for different kind of shapes that I'm using. And as you can see, what I've told before, it's like just a few colors, but when you use it with different shapes, with the middle one, it's only strokes that I'm using. It's different how it looks and how it feels. What's also important is just having small iterations, and sometimes it's only changing a few lines or 2 lines of code, or change something really easy to create something else, but really having this iteration and trying out to see what you can make even more with something you already made. That really keeps it, of course, playful and interesting. And sometimes, like when I had the first image, it's really nice, flowy image, but the last one is less symmetrical, but still interesting. And playing with just a few parameters is really important, because you also get more ideas for other artworks. Then I think, was it 2016? I'm not sure anymore, but I had 1 year, 2016 or 17, I think, yeah. I thought, well, I really like sometimes those focus of a few days. Let's try to have a focus of 1 month. So this is kind of the focus of having these grids, small grids in a 9 grid, using different shapes still, colors, trying to do really different things with just this specific framework, trying to evolve it, or and one hand, it's easier because you kind of can build from the one you did before, but it's also as well really a challenge to make something new with the same thing over and over again. And it's fun that it's quite different still, but it has kind of the same theme. So one thing I really liked about having this monthly theme is, the challenge of creating something with all these rules that are kind of fixed for me. But I also kind of miss having, like, when I'm just during the month or just everywhere during the week or during the day, I always get inspiration from other things, and it's kind of hard when you are having some new inspiration that you kind of stuck with this focus. So I really missed doing other things, but I continued doing this for like 1 year. So I had 12 themes that year, and after that I started the weekly themes, what I'm still on now, and that's just like the perfect fit for me to start on Monday with something new, maybe add some other inspiration the past week, and just changing things for me. What is funny is that it's kind of when you have a different pen than you usually write with, you also write kind of differently with the pen. That's as well sometimes with software. So these are created in open frameworks, and it's just slightly a little bit different than still having those rules that I'm used to use with processing, applying it here, but just trying something else, what I've learned in open frameworks, and it's just slightly different. Hope I have some more time. I'm always at the end. So new starts are always ugly, or sometimes ugly. I think I used to say always ugly. So mostly I'm really happy with 2D, and one of my focus. But I think in 2017 I started also with 3D, and I thought I would need to learn so much about how to do this, but I didn't get the time to do this. So I thought, well, I'm just gonna get to the documentation, try to get a 3D shapes on it, and see what happens. So these are the first 3. But later on, just like a week later, I slowly learned a bit more about lightning and to apply other things that makes it much more better. Still kind of using those same 2D grid like rules, but slowly learning day by day a bit more. And I think it really helped to just make something and learn by making. And so much more came, so much new dimensions to play with, and a lot of new ideas I could play with, and also the lightning, and still using really simple shapes. So it goes like, it's for me a lot about playing and designing, and being free to explore what I could make. Another thing what I do, so like this project is something that kind of feeds my other artistic work. So if you have about playing, live coding. It's a lot about play. So live coding, I live code visuals. Most of the time, someone else is live coding audio. And I have two links, which you can also find on my website, of performances live coding. So it's when I'm home and doing my daily project, it's really nice, and I have all the time. I'm mostly just in front of the TV in the evening doing my coding thing. But when I'm live coding, I most of the time have an audience, and you are really trying to make something interesting, or changing that with the music and interesting. So if you are interested, just have a look there. But that's like live playing for me. I also sell prints or about from my patterns. And like with the prints as well, it's really interesting to not see it on the screen and see it on paper. Another thing is the drawings. Yes, plotter drawings. So I have a plotter machine that let me draw these things I'm creating with code. What is really amazing to see. I'm just getting hypnotized again by the video, but also really fun, and sometimes also fun to, because you are kind of having these like physical things. Sometimes you have these errors that you cannot code. So on the black one, you can see like there are little smudges of the ink from the pen. And yeah, it's really fun to play with. The video is one of my newest series I'm working on with blue and red. And yeah, it's finished. So another thing I'm trying to make, so I have these patterns and I'm trying to make lino cuts from them. I'm making lino. So it's kind of experimenting still, but it's really interesting that you have the ink. And as you can see on the right image, the ink gives some errors. So it's less clean than the code itself. So these are all done by hand carving and also hand drawing on the lino before I carved. And now what I'm working on is one that I draw on the lino with my plotter, makes it more easier. But still doing it by hand, carve it out. But that takes a lot of time, but also fun. And it gives a lot of errors. And I think this is the last one. I also have in the past done sculptures with laser cutting and yes. I also want to share, if you are more interested in things like creative coding, I'm organizing live coding sessions in Amsterdam that are evenings where we have people coding music and visuals live. Hopefully somewhere this year we can have an event again. Creative Coding Amsterdam and Creative Coding Utrecht are two organizations to, if you want to know more about creativity and code, definitely follow those two. Yes, thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much for diving into that project with us. There's been so many people commenting on, giving feedback on how amazing it is to watch something like that in real life. I think we only have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, but just quickly, how does D3.js compare to the programs that you're using? And if you have any context there.
What did you say? Which
D3?
Yes. So I'm not using that one. It's still on my list to maybe check it out. But there are so many frameworks and JavaScript frameworks, especially to play with. So yeah, just if you start with something and
play around with it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And people are very curious if you have a CodePen or GitHub that they can kind of look and see the code, or is it all on the Creative Coding website?
So I have a link here with openprocessing.org. There are some other sketches. I do have a CodePen. I think there's 1 sketch or 2 sketch. I think 1 on it. And GitHub also doesn't have many sketches. I'm really bad at kind of putting the code online. But there are some of open processing, and I think CodePen is as well really interesting to use more often.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 1 final question: are you capturing the frames as GIFs and then combining them into an animated GIF, or how are you capturing that for your?
So there's I think a small library. Well, processing has many extensions you can as well add, and one of them is GIF animation. So I'm able to just run the program and it exports as well as a GIF.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Saskia. This was super incredible, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of business. People want to buy those prints. There's a lot of chatter in the chat right now about that.
Cool.
We really appreciate you joining us today, and looking forward to following you on social and seeing your progress as you add new skill sets to your repertoire, which seems already very vast and very jealous. But thank you so much.